Okay, so I suppose I totally underestimated the time commitment. When you start the doctorate program and you have a busy working life and a family life,
Yeah.
and the time commitment you put into it. But I suppose for me, I felt the best thing to do was do little often, keep at it, because if you come away from it at all, you kind of lose your focus. But it has a huge impact, and you do need very good support structures in place in terms of a very understanding family. And I suppose sometimes it can be more difficult from a work perspective, so you do need to negotiate with your line manager as well in order to get protected time to attend different things like away days and things like that. So I certainly found that a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just can't get the time off, so you have to use your holidays and that kind of thing. But it's very worth it if you're very interested in what you're doing. And it's, you don't all, I found that I didn't always keep a steady pace. There were times when I had to leave it and focus on other things. But when I got back to it was a thrill to get back to it because I was really enjoying what I was doing. So for me, the important thing was that I was really interested in what I was doing and I really wanted to do it. But you have to make some quite hard decisions, and you can't neglect your family and you can't neglect your work. Both of us had full-time demanding jobs, and that whereas if you are able to do it without that, it's a little, even with a part-time job, it's a little bit, it might be a little bit more manageable. But life happens as well at our age, particularly above us with our parents and below us with our children.
Absolutely.
So it's
and you have to put it in perspective, and I think throughout you need the tenacity that you're, as you say, that the subject area interests you. And
absolutely.
I think certainly the PRP reviews throughout, it helps you when you're getting ready for a PRP review. You had to focus in again on where you were at. And I think having, I suppose, a supervisor who was an expert in the area is very good as well. But you also need a supervisor who has experience in actually, bringing students through, because they can see the pitfalls you're falling into before you do yourself. In terms of trying to go too wide, not focusing enough, trying to do too much, trying to get too large a sample. So all of that, I think, was, the support structures within the college are very important from that perspective.
The supervisor is very important. Like that again, I had an expert in methodology and an expert in theory, and they were the two areas which of course they both knew an awful lot about each other's as well, but that was very useful. And if there's somebody, I would imagine though, if you have a supervisor who's starting off in their supervision, they might have a good insight into what it's like to be a student.
Well,
so there's that as well, you can't really lose. But I do think that relationship with your supervisors is important. But I would say that you have to be interested in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so you should choose a methodology that really interests you, but particularly a subject that really interests you. And then you can make a career out of it and enjoy your career.
You can, and I think even like from a practice perspective, in terms of working, the doctor prepares you for so much. You're able to interpret research. In my area in particular, I'm trying to influence people to practice to implement evidence-based changes, and from the doctorate again you develop the skills. You're able to search the literature, you're able to find that systematic review, you're able to provide the evidence and influence people rather than just saying I want you to do it this way or that way. You can actually show the benefits to doing it this way or that way, and I think those skills are very important.
They are good, and the thing is that if you go to other people's PRPs, you are exposed to other methodologies that you didn't investigate thoroughly yourself, because ultimately you become very good, you become an expert hopefully in one particular methodology. But if you go and you can't really then continue to be an independent researcher without having a fair idea of the other methodologies, so that you can take them on board and use them, because you won't ever only just use one methodology.
You won't,
So that's very important. Go into it, and there are a huge number of day courses, half-day courses given free gratis that you can go to that introduce you to all of these other things. You learn they're all thrown in with the PhD. You can learn all sorts of other methodologies. You can do 5-credit modules. There's a whole load of stuff. I mean, almost every day there's something on the email inviting you to take part in it. And there are some recurrent There are some recurrent visiting lecturers, and I have gone to them every time they've come because you get something new out of it, or you might go to some of their sessions sometimes and a different one the next time, so
that's it. And I think like while you did the PhD and I did the doctorate, like certainly we had the thought modules as well, which and they were so good, and like they did prepare us. We'd say advanced research looking at qualitative versus quantitative. We looked at nursing theory, we looked at what was going on in the health board. We had experts coming in from very high up in the health service talking to us about policies and protocols, and I thought those, like, they let you see opportunities that you wouldn't see before you start your doctorate, and that, you know, you'd look at these things and say, God, I'd never be able to do those, I'm a nurse. But actually, having done this study, it gives you that, you have your clinical credibility, but it gives you the academic credibility to sit around a table with people of a very high level and argue and participate in those meetings. And that I wouldn't have thought, you know, starting it, that it would have had that effect for me.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know, and I thought those thought modules were very good. But I suppose he got similar then, going to the different ones.
Well,
to make up your
I
credits.
did, and the PhD, I wanted to do my own piece of research, but it was so I was very focused from the beginning. But the fluidity of the PhD and not having to go to taught modules suited me very well, because I had the full-time job and I had a young family when I was starting in that, and it was, so I loved the flexibility of it. I loved not having to turn up in college and that sort of thing. So now your choice of whether the doctorate or the nursing doctorate or the PhD depends on what your focus is, rather than on whether you have time to do one or the other. But at the same time, the PhD did suit me much better. You know, and I had done my ability, or my learning about research had happened at undergraduate and master's level. Anyway, we had good grounding in that, so I felt that I sort of choosing one methodology, then I was at that stage that I was happy to do it.
That's it. And I suppose I always felt with the doctorate, you know, my understanding of it again was research that could be applied to practice, and that was really where I was at. Whereas I think really the PhD is at a different level.
I wanted to develop a theory. I wanted to investigate something and contribute to a discussion about this particular thing, you know. So it was, we had different notions, and I think we probably picked the right things
for us.
But we would have been directed otherwise if we hadn't.
I think so.